Welcome to Bitter Reality Brewing. This is the top 10 tips, tricks, recommendations, hacks, whatever you want to call them. Don't forget to like, subscribe, keep sharing, definitely appreciate it. This is week 15. You've asked a few things, so I want to keep it up just before we hit the top 10, but I'll keep things moving. Local brewery, Ruby Beach Brewing, called American Garage. It's a West Coast IPA on the East Coast, of course. They used to be down in Jacksonville Beach, which is a different city, and they moved over here to Jacksonville, Florida to basically, I guess, have an area so they could start canning. But you know, people in Jacksonville Beach come to Jacksonville, Jacksonville goes to Jack's Beach. It's almost interchangeable. Really nice West Coast IPA. Thank you again for helping hit the 1,000 subscribers. We're already at over 1,100. And my wife hooked me up with a pretty cool t-shirt. I'll let you read it in your own spare time so I don't slow things way down. It's gonna have a double raspberry, but I figure I gotta get more things done around the house, so stick something a little lower in the ABV. Tonight, on the top 10 tips, I'm really gonna focus on hops, but I'm gonna hit a few other, well, I'm gonna hit one other thing and a little bit more here and there. But number one, we're just gonna get right into it. Use for spent grains. And I know some people know all this, some people know a little, and some people don't know anything, but use for spent grains. Compost, baking, especially cookies and brownies. Love to take a good chocolate stout and make cookies and brownies. Yeah. Livestock, you know, cows, pigs, things like that, as far as a feed. Growing mushrooms, I didn't know that until recently. One of the subscribers explained that, and that was pretty cool. And fertilizer, of course. So those are some of the things. Warning, when you're in South Florida, it also draws flies like a magnet. They love that sugary goodness. So let's get on to number two, dry hopping with kegs. And I know you're thinking, I dry hop in my carboy, I dry hop this way. There's a big advantage to dry hopping in a keg. First of all, you can pre-purge the keg with CO2, and you can do closed transfers from one keg to another, which could be your dry hop keg over to your final keg where you're going to actually carbonate and do everything. Not to mention, you know, you're going to gain a little CO2 in there, but it reduces loss of hop aroma. You're like, hop aroma? And it reduces, like I said, chance of oxygen. We'll go into number two, CO2 aroma loss, or you can call it hop aroma, you can call it fruit aroma, anything that has an aroma and has a smell in your beer. When you're purging that CO2, or you're putting it in a carboy and you're dry hopping it, and the CO2 is escaping because there's still a little bit of fermentation, or you get a little bit of what they call hop creep in there, which we'll explain that in another tip and in another video. But you're gonna lose some of that hop aroma, if not a lot of the hop aromas. So that's something to be aware of. CO2 aroma loss. It's not just hops. You'll lose a little bit of everything in there. So that's something to be very aware of. Number four, vacuum sealers for storing hops, or even dry yeast or things like that. Vacuum sealers, a lot of times will come with freezer bags, and you can store your hops in those. Now, a lot of people will tell you that those freezer bags aren't the best thing, but as far as I'm concerned, they're better than nothing. So that's something to take into consideration. And there's some very thick freezer bags out there that I doubt have the problems like some of the older ones do. But if you can do a vacuum sealer that uses Mylar or anything like that, that way the oxygen can't get in and you know it's going to be sealed. It'll help to give a little longevity to your hops. So, number five, store your hops in the freezer. I assumed everybody knew that, but I'm assuming that when you first get into brewing, there's not like this giant list of everything you have to know. And there's a giant list, it could be huge. So if you don't already know, which I would assume the majority do, put your hops in the freezer. I don't care if you saran wrap it, duct tape it, whatever. The better you can keep oxygen from getting in, and the better you can seal it, the better. But just at least put it in the freezer. Don't leave it in the fridge. It's gonna break down. Leave it out in the warm area, it will get even worse. Seal it. There are a lot of companies who seal them in cans and stuff with nitrogen, which is great, but the freezer, just put it in the freezer until you're ready to use it. Number six, hops. The alpha ratings. Yes, you'll hear alpha or A, you know, are a measurement of bitterness of that hop. Okay, and there's other different types of oils and different measurements, but that is measured at packaging. So even with freezing, vacuum sealing, packing, it can still drop an estimated of 10% per year. Now keep in mind, some hops store very poorly and it can drop considerably, and other ones store very well and it might not drop quite as fast. So as you're storing your hops, and let's say you have hops that you know they're 2 years old, and you put them into your Beersmith or whatever program you may be using, make sure that you account for that, because that's going to bring your IBUs down a little bit. If you don't account for it and you're wondering why, you know, your double IPA with 20 ounces of hops isn't quite as bitter as you thought, yeah, the hops might be at least a year or two old when you got them, and then on top of that, you might have kept them in the freezer for a year or two. It doesn't mean that they're not going to work. It just means they're a little less effective. There's many people out there, and I think Brewlosophy's even done it, where they've taken hops that are many years old and thrown them in, and you still get bittering, you still get some hops, you still aroma, you still get some flavoring. All of that will probably diminish. I know the alpha diminishes, but with that, I would assume everything diminishes. So it degrades. Something to be aware of. Number 7, buying hops. Save yourself some money. Buy them in 4 ounce, 8 ounce, or even 1 pound packages. That will save you a lot of money. But keep in mind, are you going to use them? I guarantee you I have more hops than I'll use in a year out there, and I brew a lot. But that's okay, because I try to account for it, and I try to estimate that my bittering is going to be a little lower, my aroma might be a little lower, so I put a little bit more in there. But yeah, I have an addictive personality for certain things like that, so it is what it is. Number 8, how you use your hops. Okay, and I'm going to tell you this is a thought process, and we'll get into that later. But the general rule of thumb, back when I first started brewing, and it's starting to get a little gray, but is that when you are putting hops in, if you add them between 90 to 30 minutes of your boil, and that means you have 90-minute countdown, 30-minute countdown, I just want to make sure I'm clear on that, you're primarily going to get bittering. If you do 30 minutes, yeah, we're at that 30, to 15 or even 10 minutes, you're going to get more flavor, less bittering, and very little aroma. And then when you do 10 minutes to 0 minutes, you're looking for primarily aroma hops. Dry hopping, you're definitely looking for aroma hops. So the theory here, and that's why I'm saying it's kind of a thought process and a theory, is that you can use any hops you want for bittering, you can use any hops you want for aroma, but some are bred or considered better at one thing or another, or they're called dual purpose, and they're really good for both bittering, aroma, flavor, everything out there. So it's something to keep in mind. Like Magnum, I love using Magnum as a bittering hop. Magnum has some pretty nice flavor and aroma, and could probably be used, you know, more as a later addition, but it's just what I like. So number 9. Yes, this is what I meant by thought process. The thought process, you know, 90 to 30, I'm getting bitter. 30 to 15 to 10, I'm getting flavor. And from 10 to 0, I'm getting aroma. Well, then comes whirlpooling. This is what I meant by thought process in regards to hops. So in whirlpooling, based on the temperature and how long you do it, you're going to get a little bitter, you're going to get some aroma, you're going to get some flavor, you're going to get a little bit of everything based on temperature and how long and what you're doing. And, you know, there's still a lot of research, still a lot of studying going on, trying to figure out, you know, what's going on. But basically, when you hit 212 Fahrenheit and you kill that heat, you can start a whirlpool then. You can start it at 150. You can go down to as low as even, say, 120. Keep in mind, the lower you get, the more chance you're going to be able to get an infection too from something falling into your wort. So keep that in mind. That's one of those things where I was reading a big brewery that does literally like a 1-hour whirlpool all the way down to about 80 degrees. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know if I want to risk that. So it's just something to be aware of. But also keep in mind that there are pros and cons. And if you start doing some research, you'll find that there's some research out there, or some people who've done some testing and experimenting, that will tell you the benefits of the higher versus the lower temperatures. So whirlpooling, definitely something to think about. I like 140 Fahrenheit. I can't remember why, but I think I get the best of both worlds for both, you know, some flavor and aroma with very little bittering. But that's just me, and that's from what I've read and what I've gone with so far until it gets proven otherwise. Number 10. This is going to be a warning about using whole hops. Yes, this is going to be a warning. Okay, if you're dry hopping in a keg and you're using something like this, okay, which they're inexpensive, they're nice. I buy them on sale occasionally. When they start showing signs of some, almost looks like rust, I chuck them. It's all great. But in this container, and I just didn't think about sharing this, I can get approximately 4 ounces of pelletized hops. 4 ounces of pelletized hops will fill it all the way to the top once it's soaked up some of the beer. So I'm gonna lose, I don't know, what is that? 2 tall boys worth of beer. So it's gonna happen. It's gonna soak it up. And that's 4 ounces of pelletized hops. And I know a couple of you out there going, oh, I know what he's gonna say. But a lot of you are like, huh? I can only get 1 ounce. Yes, 1 ounce of whole leaf hops, dried whole leaf hops. I haven't tried fresh, but whole leaf hops, 1 ounce dried. 1 ounce, that's it. I'm done, it's full. And it's literally pretty close to full, and then when the liquid hits, it's done. So keep that in mind. If you're dry hopping in a keg, you're probably only gonna get about 4 ounces of hops in this. Pelletized, 1 ounce if you're doing whole leaf. So if you're looking to do, say, 8 ounces of dry hopping, you may have to put several of these and just drop them in there and go with it, or hang them together, whatever you gotta do. Or you can do a dry hop and then move it to another keg with some more dry hops. You're gonna lose some beer each time you dry hop, but that's something to be aware of. So just something to be aware of when you're dry hopping, especially in a keg. And you see it in the carboys too, but you're getting some what? Loss of aroma. So thank you again for joining us here at Bitter Reality Brewing. Don't forget, like, subscribe, keep sharing. Definitely appreciate the support. Thank you very much.